I want to talk about why it's not only important to know how a child's doing in their first language, how a child's doing in their second language, but why it's important to know about both of those things at the same time. So we talked about an informal assessment at home. How's the kid's Creole? How's the kid's Spanish? How's his Bengali? How's he doing? But we haven't talked about how do we know what the connection is between their two languages if these children are bilingual. So if you look at this chart, I'm going to explain what you're seeing. This is part of a research project that we did a number of years ago. And these are Spanish and English children. And if you look at this side, you will see their scores in English. Along the bottom, their scores in Spanish. This is basically the same test, once in English and once in Spanish. So what we could do is figure out what words do they know in English, what words do they know in Spanish, what words do they know in both languages. And each of these dots shows you where a child was, where his English score was, and second, where his Spanish score was. Now you'll see on the graph that there's a 1, a 2, a 3, and a 4, 4 different children. Child number 1 scored 87 in English, and she scored only 27 in Spanish. For this group of children, 87 was actually quite a good score in English. But what about 27 in Spanish?
Very low.
That's a very low score. What do you think is going on with this child? She lives in a Spanish-speaking home. She's 4 years old. She's been in an English-speaking classroom for a couple of years. What might you say about this particular little girl and her dual language
They're not
abilities?
using the Spanish language at home enough for the child to, comprehend it and use it comfortably with the parents.
Okay, so apparently her Spanish language development seems to have kind of come to a screeching halt.
Yeah.
She's not acquiring a lot of Spanish in the family context or the community context or the neighborhood. But what is she doing in English?
She's excelling.
She's excelling. She's doing quite well in English. So this may be a child for whom being a bilingual is not looking as strong as it might, because already her Spanish seems to be at risk. If her parents want her to be a strong bilingual, they're going to have to do quite a lot of work, and they're going to have to pick up on the Spanish, aren't they, in order for her to be a bilingual in Spanish and English. Okay, let's look at, yeah, go ahead.
Maybe she has a number of older siblings, because in general the older siblings speak more English and they speak English with her,
Could be,
and that's a possibility.
could be.
Yeah,
Could
I
be.
watched that one family.
Mm-hmm.
The parents, father, mother speaks Bangla, but the child speaks English with the siblings.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So even though parents are trying to keep the first language alive, but the youngest child, she's speaking English most of the time.
Most of the time, yeah, yeah.
It's happening.
Kids want to be monolingual. It's much easier to be monolingual than to be bilingual. So I think parents really need to be clued in. If you want bilingual kids, you got to make some rules about what language is spoken at home and stick to it. And it's not so easy to do, but it really makes a difference in the long run. Yeah. Let's look at child number 2 on the graph. This is a little boy who scored 105 in English, and he scored 80 in Spanish. So what can you say about this little boy?
He's actually speaking both languages at home, I would say.
He might be speaking both languages at home. He's certainly doing well,
Well in Spanish,
in
yes.
vocabulary in both languages, exactly. So perhaps this is a family who's really supporting Spanish, or he's in a bilingual program, or he's in a community situation where his Spanish is being well maintained, and in a schooling situation where he's learning English as well. So we might even call him a balanced bilingual, doing well in both languages. Let's look at child's number 3. This is a little girl again, and her English scores are 37, and her Spanish score is 110. Whoa.
Opposite of number 1.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Kind of the mirror of number 1. What could you say about child number
But
3?
child is how old?
She's 4 years old.
Maybe she's not exposed to English or daycare who speaks English.
Okay.
So she's learning all the way, just all the home languages.
That's right.
But that's not bad either.
Ah,
Because when she goes to school, she will learn English anyway. It's a new thing. She will have like tendency to learn everything. And that will help her to learn
yes.
the second language.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely. What do you think, Carol? What about this child?
Definitely, I think it's great that she's excelling in her Spanish at home. Like Maya said, she's gonna get her English at school. When she gets to school, she'll be exposed to so much, something new that she's going to probably be eager to learn the English language. So definitely, it's not a bad situation there. I think it's a lot better than number 1.
Okay. For as far as Spanish is
As far as
concerned.
Spanish is.
Exactly. And your prediction is that her English is going to come in very quickly,
Right.
and she's obviously a good language learner if she's scoring that well in Spanish,
Definitely.
right? Last child, number 4. This is a little boy. His English score is 35. Spanish score is 45. What would you say if you saw these scores?
He's not being exposed to language, you know.
Any language, any language. Okay.
And at age 4, you said
He's 4.
there might be some learning disabilities going on.
Okay.
So definitely would need to be assessed in a different way.
More extensively
Right.
looked at for the possibility for intervention.
Right.
Now let's think about this. If you're only giving one test and it's in English to these same 4 children, let's think about what we would say. Child number 1, 87 in English. She's good, right? Child number 2, 105 in English. He's fine, right? Child number 3, 37 in English. Oh. Uh-oh. Without that information about her Spanish,
Yes, exactly.
that could be a child who gets slated for early intervention, as well as number 4, who's the kid who really needs it, right? So there is why doing assessments in both languages is so critical, because kids can be assessed for language delay simply because they haven't learned enough English, because they haven't been exposed to enough English yet. And yet, because we're in such a hurry that everybody has to learn English so fast, she's not there yet. And she's had a whole year in a preschool. One whole year, wow. So that's why doing it in both languages is really such a critical point. And that's what we're going to find out a little bit more about from Cornelia, who's going to show us the Bella.